the Sun newspaper reported that I ran or was involved in the biggest DVLA fraud the country had ever seen at the time. The Sun newspaper reported that me and a few other people took or arranged driving tests for 396 people in the space of about 6 months. Now, I pled guilty to 37 counts of conspiracy to defraud on that charge, and I received a 2-year prison sentence for it. I'm going to do a follow-up video after this one about my first time in prison at the age of 28, looking at 2 years straight into an A category prison, mainly because it was the holding prison where I came from, High Wycombe. They sent us straight there, but it was still a category A facility. Now, where it all started, I had a friend. She had a horse. I had some stables, and she always had money. She always seemed to come up with money, and had quite a nice life. I could see that, you know, not overly extravagant, but you know, she didn't have to worry about where she's buying food, clothing her kids. So I asked her one day, I became quite friendly with her, and I just sat down and straight out asked her, a bit like that, like, where are you getting your money from? She replied, I take driving tests for people in the travelling community. So I said to her, well, it seems to pay all right. Is there any blokes that want it done? Any men from the travelling community that want their driving test taken? And she said, well, yeah, loads, but nobody wants to do it. There's no one around that will do it. I said, we'll sort it out for us, and we'll see what happens. So that was it. My fate had been sealed from that one conversation, and I took the first test. It was booked for me. I was handed the provisional license. So the way that it would work was provisional license would be given over by the person who wanted a driving test taken for them, and a bag of cash, and we then go about booking a theory driving test, and I would go and then take that test. So the first one I did, I was really nervous. I didn't know what was going on. Was I going to get caught? How dangerous is this? RE, the police, the test centres, do they have their own security and stuff? It's been a while since I'd passed my own test. Now, I'm relatively intelligent, so I swatted up for a couple of weeks, and I learnt the theory test book inside out. The day before the test was due, the first one that I took, I received the licence, and I studied it. I memorised the date of birth, the address, what the person looked like, because obviously it was a picture of somebody else, it wasn't me. And I had to prepare for that. I knew I had to prepare for how am I going to get in if they don't think it's me. A few of them I couldn't get into, they refused to accept it. I practiced the signature of the person for hours and hours that night, and in the morning again. And I went off. I turned up to whichever test centre it was, I can't remember now. There was quite a few across the country that we used, and they let me in, and I passed the test, and the guy got his driving theory exam because of me. Then wanted his practical test, so I agreed to do that again for the money up front, because obviously once you do a driving test, the license gets sent straight to the person who passed. So obviously, not being trusting people that are prepared to break the law to get a license, I'm not going to trust them with paying me afterwards. So I always made sure there was money up front, and I passed the practical driving test. We bought a little car, put some L plates on it, got it insured, paid someone to sit next to me in the passenger seat and just stay quiet, because obviously I couldn't drive myself to the test centre. Thought I had everything covered, you know. We turned up, I went off, the name was called, I jumped up, and the person I was with, I think it was the first test, and one of them went, go on Chris, you got this. And I just ignored him, because that wasn't the name of the person I was supposed to be. The instructor or the examiner didn't seem to notice, went out, took the test, passed the test with flying colours, and rang through and said, you know, your licence will be in the post. That expanded pretty quickly. When one person found out about it, a lot of other people wanted that done. The phone number was banded around the country, and we were actually having trouble booking tests. We found a site online where you could get DVLA cancellations, and we figured out there were so many across the country. We've got the car, we've got the time, so when anyone wants a test booked, we'll we'll book tests up and down the country at the next available slot. In the end, we were guaranteeing for X amount of money a full, from a provisional to a full driving license within 2 weeks. We could get the theory test booked within a couple of days. It would be another week or so after that actually need the theory test certificate number to book the practical. And done that. This was all being paid for through credit cards of an accomplice of mine, which I'll get to at the end of this video. It was part of our spiraling downfall, unfortunately. And I was having a great time, you know. I was 27, 28, I had a few quid in my pocket. I managed to buy myself a nice BMW. A couple of months later got a better BMW on an insurance. Wasn't a proper scam, but maybe somebody crashed into me and I pushed them a little bit further and got a brand new 330D BMW out of it. I was like a £40,000 car or £45,000 car at the time. Obviously that was all taken away from me in the end. I didn't have that for too long. Little known to myself and the others, the DVLA actually have an undercover team themselves that investigate people doing this sort of thing. So we're a good few months into this now. The tests sometimes, I mean, they were flying in. People found out we were passing, or I was passing for them, and the phone was ringing all the time. You know, can we have a test? Can we have a test? Can we have a test? Or booking them in, booking them in, booking them in. I remember one day I lived in High Wycombe at the time. I remember one day I got up and I had to be in Bristol for 8 o'clock to do a test. Then I drove to Basingstoke for lunchtime to do a test. Then I went up to, I think it was Birmingham or Norwich or somewhere north of me anyway, for the afternoon. And I'd done 3 driving tests in a day. Sometimes I'd end up back at the same driving test centre under a different name, but it had been so long. People said, you know, the people that I was working with, are you worried about going? We can get you into a test here. Are you worried about us booking it here? I was like, no, just stick me in. It's been long enough. You've got to think they see, what, 6, 8, 10 people a day, 5 days a week, 5 or 6 weeks. That's a lot of people for them to remember me. Now, looking back, I took driving tests for 17-year-olds. I've taken a driving test for a 61-year-old, for very slim people, for overweight people, for people with blonde hair, ginger hair, grey hair, black hair, bald people. I actually shaved my head once. There's a picture of me on Facebook I put up recently, and I think it's on one of the YouTube shorts, where I'm stood there with my arms folded like this and I have a shaved head. That was because I'd recently done a driving test for a couple of bald people, and I got through. You know, it was all these little tweaks, costume changes. I assumed the character. I got to the point where I was getting a provisional driving license. I'd look at the signature once and I could do it straight away. A lot of them were just crosses. Unfortunately, the travellers that we worked for, getting the licenses for, they couldn't read or write. So sometimes I had to just do an X, make sure that my spelling looked bad. I had to become, or seem to be, illiterate myself. So I had to wear headphones in the tests. I had to ask what things were. Some of them I had to wear glasses, so I had some fake glasses that had just clear lenses in, if the person had glasses on their driving test, on their provisional license. Any little manipulations, any little things that I could do to try and make it more believable. And I would assume an identity under the provisional license that I got for whoever it was, and I'd make up a persona in my head. Sometimes only half an hour before I was on the test, I wouldn't even look at the licenses anymore. I just wanted to get to the test centre. I knew that I was going to smash it. I was that egotistical and confident in myself that I knew I'd smash it out. And if I didn't, we just rebooked the test. Everyone got 2 or 3 goes until we gave them their money back. And generally we got them through the test in the end, or I got through the test in the end for them. As I say, the DVLA had an undercover team that were following us. We found out when it all came on top, when the house got raided, for about 3 months. I never knew they existed. I probably should have researched what I was doing a little bit more. I'm glad I didn't at the time. I'm glad I got caught before it got too out of hand, because it was getting a bit silly, and it was leading towards other crimes through the contacts we were making. A few of the travellers in the travelling community used to call me Saint, because my name's Chris, obviously. They used to call me Saint Christopher, the patron saint of the travelling man, because in my head what I was doing was I was getting travellers who were driving anyway, I was getting them a licence so they could then get insurance. So if they did have a crash, they'd be covered, and if they were pulled by the police, they wouldn't go to prison. Because I realised that they were going to prison for driving offences, and it was all down to having no insurances. But looking back, obviously I can see that that wasn't the thing to do. You know, I was breaking the law quite severely, and I think that was reflected in my time in prison. And I was originally told I was looking at 3 to 5 years. So the police came to the house. I happened to be in at the time. I heard a knock on the back door, and I saw the fluorescent jackets through the glass door. So me being me, I haven't done anything wrong. In my head, my tracks are covered. I opened the door, popped my head out, and there were probably, I don't know, 15, 20 police officers on the driveway, and a film crew as well. It was actually recorded for a documentary, say 15 years ago. And the police came in. Luckily they didn't have to kick the door in, and said they had to raid my bedroom. I was staying at my parents at the time. Now, they took loads of clothes with them. I now realise that obviously I'd been wearing the same t-shirt for a lot of the tests. It was like my test t-shirt, but I hadn't hidden it. It was just in my room in the wardrobe. Again, an error by me. It showed that I didn't really put enough thought into what I was doing, luckily. And went into the police station. They took me away. They actually said to me, will you let the camera crew in the house? And I refused to let them in. So that was a new one on me. I didn't realise you don't have to let camera crews into your house when you're being arrested if they're filming. Obviously the police body cams, you can't do anything about that, but these road wars, police camera action, stuff like that, the people that are in their houses going, no, get that camera out of here, the way I see it, have already given permission, so they're just making themselves look a little bit silly, to be honest. Now, I was taken to the police station. They kept talking about these driving offences, and I'm going, I have no idea what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about. You've lost me. I was a pretty good actor at the time, I believe, because I was getting in pretending to be, you know, hundreds of different people all the time. And I sat there, and my solicitor turned up. She sat in the little room with me. It's not a proper interview room. It was just like a little box room that they had me in when she got there to have a chat. And she said, what's going on? I said, look, they've arrested me for these driving offences. I don't really know. She said, don't worry, this isn't something that you're going to get done for. We'll have you out of here in about half an hour. So I'm thinking, that's a bit of a relief, thank heavens for that. She went off for 10 minutes, and she came back with a wad of paperwork like this and slammed it down in front of me. I'll never forget. I said, what's that? She said, that's all the evidence against you, Chris. I suggest you start telling me the truth. So I kind of went, right, okay. I said, how long am I looking at? That was my first question, how long am I looking at? She said, 3 to 5 years. My heart sunk. I'd never been to prison before. So the thought of it, a lot of my friends have been in jail. I wasn't too worried, but it's the unknown, you know, the not knowing what's going to happen when you get there. If you get there, what prison you're going to be sent to, who you're going to be with, is there people I don't get on with in there? All that stuff starts flashing through your head, or certainly did in mine. I also then, my second question was, am I getting remanded? And she said, yes, most definitely, because you're a flight risk. I think that was due to being involved with a lot of travellers at the time. Now, I actually got bailed. So I'm sat there thinking I'm going straight to prison today or tomorrow morning after interviewing. I'm going to be remanded, and I'm going to spend the next 3 to 5 years of my life locked behind bars. There are a lot tighter bars than these ones behind me, by the way. And I got bailed. I got bailed out of the police station, and I have never smelled air so fresh in my life when I walked out of that High Wycombe police station that day. I'll never forget the feeling of, and I'd been put in the police cell many times before, but the actual feeling of having my life taken away from me, you know, that was a worry. And I came out and I felt freedom. So I went, me being me at the time, I think I went down to the pub to celebrate. Now the investigation continued. I ended up going to, it was put into magistrates court. It was escalated to Crown Court because of the severity of the offence and the offences. Well, I was on bail for that for quite a number of months before it came to, it wasn't to trial. We pled guilty, but it had to go through a few sets of different stages. It was some 15 years ago now, so I don't recall exactly what was going on. In the meantime, I think I was arrested for an assault on a bouncer. That was proved it wasn't me. The bouncer swiped a pint glass out of my hand and sat on me, and I got arrested. So there's me thinking I'm on bail for this other thing. I'm going to jail tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm definitely going to a police cell, but I'm not going to wake up in prison. I didn't. That was proved wrong. I then got arrested for arson. I was arrested for an arson that was committed I think some months before all this had happened. Now I don't really know the details. Someone I know was attacked with a shovel. Then that night, the person that attacked them's cars were all set fire to, and the police were trying to pin it on me. Of course, that wasn't me. They had CCTV of someone committing the arson, squirting petrol. I remember them showing me the thing because they thought it was me. I said, it's nothing to do with me. DNA test proved that it wasn't me. I don't know if anyone ever got caught for that in the end. I don't know the outcome of that situation. So that's a little bit about, you know, how hectic my life was at the time, what was going on. The police were definitely after me, trying to pin these things on top of me while I had this other case on the go as well. So it came to court. 3 of us pled guilty. One of us decided not to post bail and went straight to prison, and got whatever sentence. So they went into remand basically voluntarily. They were out shortly after I went in, actually, because it wasn't an actual trial, but the investigation took that long to get into court properly on the date that they'd set. We went back again for sentencing, and I posted, I think it was a £2,000 bail. My other co-defendant, she was already in prison by this point as well, so there was 2 women in prison for it and me, and I was waiting till the last minute, because obviously I didn't want to go to prison. Now these 2, I believe, had been inside before for short periods of time. Certainly one of them had, and I knew I was going, but I couldn't accept it to myself. You know, I wanted to be out there making money up until day dot. So when it came to me actually going to prison, I went up to Aylesbury with a friend of mine, and we were walking around before the time of the court appearance, and there were police everywhere. All around Aylesbury town centre, there was mounted police around every corner. There was a police car, a riot van. And I said to my friend, I said, what's all this for? There must be something big going on. He said, yeah, you. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you don't really realise, you know, how much trouble you're in, do you? And I was like, well, it's just a few driving tests. I was still very ignorant to what I'd actually done and the trouble that I'd caused. And then I noticed that the police were all looking at me, you know, literally mounted police on horseback, following us around Aylesbury in case I was a flight risk. So I went in and I got sentenced. My barrister stood up, said whatever it was he said, then the prosecution stood up and the judge slammed me with a 2-year prison sentence. And I was taken down from court, straight into handcuffs, taken down the stairs into a holding cell, ready for the fate that awaited me. I shall do a video very soon about what happens next, my first day, week, month and half a year in prison. I'll be recording that very soon. Please do like and subscribe. If you've got any comments about the video that you've just watched, please ask in the comments section. The whole point of this channel is to get people to understand the realities of crime, the realities of drug addiction, where that life takes you and how dangerous it can be at some time. So please do ask any questions about my crimes, about my life, about my addictions and about my recovery that you would want to ask me. Thank you for your time, guys. Don't forget, like and subscribe.